Hey, good Friday afternoon. The Friday forecast that I think a lot of you have been waiting for. Thanks for joining us today. I'm meteorologist Taylor Cox, and we are talking about that major severe outbreak that is expected later on this afternoon into the overnight hours tonight through tomorrow morning, through the rest of the day, redeveloping storms on Saturday, and then we'll even see those storms out to the East Coast on Sunday. Yes, we have a lot of hours of storms here, so we're just getting started. I had my coffee this morning, so I think most of our Mets here at Hail Trace are ready to go. So storms will continue, as I mentioned, overnight tonight and into tomorrow morning, and then we see those severe storms on the East Coast. Some of the largest hazards here, well, all of them: large hail, strong tornadoes, and extreme wind. But before we get started on what's going to happen today, let's take a look back at what we saw yesterday. We did have storms across the state across the U.S. yesterday, multiple states here. You can see anywhere from Mississippi, just along that Mississippi and Alabama state line, all the way into Georgia. Several severe thunderstorm warning storms here. Most of the hail that fell in this area, and yes, they were hailstorms here, they were on the smaller side. We're talking about quarter, maybe slightly larger. One of the most talked about storms that we had here in the office yesterday is something that I want to address here right now, is that we had a storm just in northern Atlanta, and we got some pretty good video from it, but look how small these hailstones are right here. They are small. They are not larger than the size of a quarter. So that is not something that we look at. We look at these larger storms, these larger hailstones out here. But yeah, we had a lot of hail yesterday, just a ton of hail. It's little, but there's a lot of hail. It almost looked like snow across Georgia yesterday. And I saw some comments from people in Atlanta that said, I got nothing. Yeah, there was a lot of pockets of storms in Atlanta, or just outside of the Atlanta metro, that got some really good storms. Others saw sunshine and no rain at all. That's just kind of how it goes this time of the year. But if you do need a hail map from all of those storms that we saw yesterday, anywhere from Arkansas to Kentucky down to Mississippi, Alabama, and Georgia, Tennessee included in there, we do have those storms mapped for you at hailtrace.com. But moving on to what we could see today, it's pretty warm out there. You guys know the drill here. You need that heat to produce storms. We're going to see a cool down as we head into the weekend. Very windy as well. We're starting to see all of this set up out to the plains and into the west, and then we'll start to see, as this front pushes along pretty quickly, as I might add, because we've got a lot of strong wind out there, we'll start to see those storms later on this afternoon. And I think we do have a severe thunderstorm warning right now. I saw that pop up just a few minutes ago. But yeah, we've got a line of storms right here. Coming anywhere from Kansas all the way into Missouri and into Arkansas right now. Temperatures are gorgeous, 68 right now here in Oklahoma, 70 in Kansas City, 80 out in Dallas. I would say go outside and enjoy time on the patio, maybe climb up on a roof this afternoon, get some last work in before we have those storms later on tonight. But it's so windy out there, it's not enjoyable at all. We have those wind advisories, or wind alerts rather, highlighted there in that golden color. And then we also have a fire weather, this is called a red flag warning, highlighted there in pink because of the wind and the high wind gusts today. We saw a lot of 70-mile-per-hour gusts out in the Texas and Oklahoma panhandle, slowly moving their way into central Oklahoma as we speak. We can actually hear it above our heads, hitting the building here at the Hail Palace. So it's windy today, but you're probably on here because you want to talk about storms. Let's get into it. Here's your risk for today. So this is the SPC risk, but we do make our own. We kind of pivot a little bit from this here at Hail Trace because we look at the different perils, the types of hazards that you could get: large hail, high wind, tornadoes. And we go into each area, and we are very, very specific on what we think each city will get. So you're going to see this change a little bit. I want a wide viewed first, and then we're going to go into each different part of the storm. We're going to start up to the north and talk about this northern half. Then we're going to go down to the south and talk about the southern half. I saw Lee is back in here today. Thank you for joining us today. I saw your comment pop up on the bottom of the screen looking at Kansas City, and we'll talk about the timeline for Kansas City here in just a few minutes. There's that low pressure system. There's that storm, this line of storms extending out in front of the low pressure system, and then a cluster of storms farther down to the south. For today, Another risk for tomorrow. This starts early tomorrow morning. Look at that, 6 a.m. Saturday morning. We have redeveloping storms down to the south. That's what you need to watch for as we head into the afternoon and evening hours on Saturday. And I see Ty is also on here from Kansas City. Yeah, comment where you guys are from, and we can really tailor this forecast to what you guys want to see. So let's get into it. Let's start with Kansas City, because you guys are some of the first to get storms this afternoon. We're going to start in the afternoon hours, start to see storms form and pop up just to the south and west of Kansas City. Anywhere from Wichita all the way to KC, you're going to start to see this line forming. Omaha, you're next. Starting with KC, though. All right, between about 2 and 5 o'clock this evening, we'll start to see those storms form. How strong will they be? I think that's the true question. How fast can we get these storms to pop and to start producing that hail? I have a level 2, level 3 risk for Kansas City, so not in that high risk, but also not a low risk. There's some inconsistency with what we could see for KC. Between about 2 and 5 o'clock, I think, is whenever we're expecting that timeline for KC here. Going into Omaha right after that, so between about 3 to 5 o'clock will be the earliest start time for Omaha, but probably a little bit afterwards to get into Omaha proper, the actual inside the city here, maybe about 5 to 6. And I actually want to go to the radar right now because we also, in addition to doing future forecasts, we give your live radar updates. So I think that John is going to go to the radar and show us storms popping out of Kansas City right now as we speak. I'm going to step off the screen here and let him get that radar set up for us, but I do want to grab the radar on my phone and give you some updates from what I can see on the radar app on my phone. St. Joseph, so this is going to be in the northern side of Kansas City. We have a severe thunderstorm warning. Pull in this radar here. And this warning is for some small hail. Okay, so 3/4 of an inch, smaller than the size of a quarter. And 60-mile-per-hour wind gusts. Here we go. St. Joe, Missouri is just on the northwestern side of Missouri. Of Kansas City. Technically in Kansas, moving into Missouri right now. We've got Leavenworth getting some rain, especially if you're on the north side of the city. We've got Atchison in here as well. This storm is moving to the north fast. Holy moly, this is a fast mover at 75 miles an hour. One more time for the people that didn't hear me. Moving to the north at 75 miles an hour. This is a fast-moving storm. Think about how fast you drive on the highway, and maybe you're going this way, this way, this way, this way. You're not outrunning the storm. This storm is catching up to you. So you can see that this is moving to St. Joe very, very quickly. Man, these storms are firing early, but I do think that we'll see storms later on this afternoon and into the evening hours. We will see another round. This is not what this is not the only storm we're going to see today. Kansas City getting rain right now. However, this is not severe warned. What we're seeing in Kansas City is probably a decent downpour. This is also moving to the north. It's going to be out of your area very quickly because of the nature of these storms. They're moving so quickly. It's going to be out of your area very, very soon. You're probably also feeling the strong wind on top of this rain. So it's probably raining sideways right now. You guys know that meme, right? We've got such a strong wind out there, you're probably seeing that rain come at you sideways. So I know that there's more people on here than just in Kansas City, so I do want to move on here. I want to go back to the forecast. Thank you, John, he's producing today. I appreciate you pulling that up for us. That rain, it's almost out of Kansas City now. We're probably not getting any hail in Kansas City, but maybe some coming into St. Joe right now. Whatever hail we do get, that's going to be on the smaller side, smaller than the size of a quarter. So we're going to get back to the forecast here. We were just talking about the different areas that we're going to see storms over the next few days. And right about there, I think that we're good on our graphics. St. Louis. Ivan's coming on here from St. Louis. Thanks for joining us today. I think that St. Louis is going to be one of our main areas to watch for today. St. Louis, look at that. Storm timeline probably after dark, but just barely after dark here. Alrighty, moving back through, so we were talking about those storms coming up into Kansas City today, another round into Omaha later on this evening, or closer to dinner time. So that may be right around your evening commute. Make sure that you are taking a look at the radar before you head out for your evening commute. These are going to have a weird storm motion. These Omaha storms, they're going to be moving straight to the north. So they're going to be moving probably at a different motion than you normally see. We've got this line of storms that will then form down to the south, going through Missouri as we head into the evening hours. It's still daylight at this time, but we will slowly be seeing those storms moving into St. Louis. And again, I think that St. Louis, you guys have a really good chance for just about every hazard here. High winds, strong tornadoes, and large hail. Here's your timeline. The sun has just set. We're going to be on the west side of the metro now. It's about 8 o'clock in the evening. We're going to continue to see these storms move into St. Louis proper as we head into the late night hours. You're done with dinner. You're probably getting down, probably getting ready for bed at this time. Maybe you have Friday night date night. Maybe you're out with your friends. You need to be watching the radar because this could be a very dangerous situation, but we just don't know. It has the potential to be, though. Heading into St. Louis, right around 9:30 to 10:30, continuing to track across to the east. It's not there for long. We're probably done with these storms in St. Louis by about midnight. That brings us to Chicago. Heading up to the north now, these storms coming into Chicago just shortly before midnight, tracking across the city to the east by about 3 a.m. So the timeline for Chicago, midnight to 3 a.m. We're just talking timeline right now. We'll get into hazards just in a minute. Now let's head down to the south. Let's start our radar over. We talked about those storms coming into KC this afternoon. We also have storms firing in Louisiana at this time. So between about 4 and 5 o'clock, I think that those storms will be a little bit more widespread across Louisiana and Arkansas, continuing to track to the east into Memphis and Jackson first. So 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock, Jackson, I want you to be ready for these storms. They're just on the state line. Heading into Jackson by about sunset, it's going to be very, very difficult to see any tornado that forms. This is the most dangerous thing about not only the southeast, but also the timeline of these storms, is it is dark and we cannot see these storms coming. They're also moving very fast. We just saw how fast that storm was moving just to the north of Kansas City. It's moving fast. It's moving at 75 miles an hour. You can't outrun that thing. So it's very dangerous to be chasing storms late at night like this because you cannot see these storms coming, and there's also a lot of trees in this area. So make sure that you have multiple ways to get severe weather alerts today, and make sure that you're watching the radar if you are headed out this evening. If not, you hang out at home, make sure that you're ready for these storms. Here we go, though, into Jackson by about 6 to 7 o'clock this evening. These storms will be pretty scattered, not as clear of a line as what we saw farther up to the north, right? Into Memphis by about 8 to 10 o'clock tonight, continuing to track through into the early morning hours. We'll say by about 3 o'clock, these storms will be just about done in Memphis. Now into Tennessee, where the severe risk goes down as we head farther into Saturday morning and farther up to the north. However, that severe risk goes up, it increases farther down to the south and east. We're going to pause right there because we're into Saturday morning now. We're going to pause right there. We'll go back to your timeline in just a minute. I want to talk about Friday tonight into the overnight hours. Here's your hail forecast. A better chance for that large hail farther down to the south. We're talking about I-70 into the south here. Memphis, Jackson, Birmingham with a better chance for hail. A little bit smaller out in Birmingham. As I mentioned, I know there's some people watching from St. Louis right now. St. Louis has a really good chance for some pretty decent sized hailstones. We're talking about the size of a baseball here. The farther north you go, I think that your risk for large hail goes down, but you could still see some hail. We'll take the golf balls, the ping pong balls, right? You can see those two areas that I pointed out earlier, one to the north with smaller hailstones, that other to the south with larger hailstones. That best chance to see that large hail right around St. Louis to Memphis. Your max forecasted hail size here, right around the size of a tennis ball to a baseball, depending on where you are in the U.S., but I do think that baseball-sized hail is absolutely possible this evening into the overnight hours. What about high wind? That's going to be a really big thing for everyone here. So high wind is going to be your most likely hazard, anywhere from Omaha all the way down to Jackson. St. Louis, once again, you're probably going to get high wind. Make sure you pull those trampolines closer to the house. Try to pull those cars into the garage. You kind of know the drill here. Peoria, Nashville, all in that high category to get some pretty decent wind. The National Weather Service is saying anywhere between about 70 to 90 miles an hour. Holy moly, 90 miles an hour of straight line wind. What about the tornado forecast? So the best chance here for that, I'll explain this just a little bit. Strong tornado in the hatched area, most likely chance to see a tornado between St. Louis and Memphis. Okay, one more time. A smaller chance, but it's still on the board for places like Omaha, Madison, those areas highlighted there in yellow. A greater chance to see more numerous tornadoes. So we're not talking 1, 2, it's not isolated here. There could be a lot of tornadoes in this area. And they could be on the strong side. We're talking EF2 or stronger. Now that's possible. That's not guaranteed, but it's definitely possible. We broke this down for the at-risk cities. Does that make sense? For today, for hail, so this is for hail, Chicago in that low to moderate category, Omaha between moderate and high, St. Louis between that high to extreme category. Again, I really picked out St. Louis here because I think that's the city that we're going to see the best chance for the strongest storms. Kansas City I kept at the moderate category. It's possible, but it just depends on how fast these storms get going here. Nashville on the lower side, and Memphis also on that low to moderate side. So we just talked about Friday. If you need to go have a review of Friday, wait until this live is over, you can watch this again. Let's move on to Saturday. Saturday, we see those storms again moving through Chicago in the early morning hours. Continuing, I said Chicago is done by about 3 o'clock, and then we have storms down to the south that will also be redeveloping, I think, through the early morning hours. So there we go. Storms move out by about noon up to the north. On Saturday, you may have a second round Saturday afternoon, but I really want to focus farther down to the south because I think this is where we're going to see the best potential for those strong tornadoes, large hail, and high wind, southeastern side of the U.S. Let's start this radar view over. Let's see this one more time. So storms are left over from the night before, early Saturday morning, moving from Mississippi into Alabama. But that is not what I'm most concerned about. These have the chance to be severe. I'm more concerned about the development into the early afternoon hours. Here we are at 12 o'clock. This is where you could see that tornado outbreak. This will track into Mississippi by about the late morning to early afternoon, tracking to the east as we head into the early afternoon hours and even into the evening as the sun starts to set. I do think that this area will be the best chance for strong tornadoes. You can even start to see on these future radars here, do you see those discrete supercells? Those are the ones that we really have to keep an eye on because if they could stay isolated long enough to be really organized, they could produce a strong tornado here. So I think that Saturday is probably the best chance for strong tornadoes. Here we are by Saturday evening into the late night hours. It's 10:30 at this time. Storms are about to move into Atlanta. Better chance for just some really heavy rain and maybe some hail farther up to the north, and then you're going to see that high wind and tornado risk down to the south. We don't stop by Saturday evening. We continue into the overnight hours, Saturday into Sunday, and then continuing to track to the east by early Sunday morning. I know that was a lot of information. Of course, if you need to go back and watch this live stream again, once we're done, you can go back and watch it again. What about the hail risk on Saturday into Sunday? We're going to have a better chance earlier on in the day, especially farther out to the west here. So this risk encompasses anywhere from Louisiana all the way up to Tennessee. I think that we're going to have a line of storms that we could see a pretty decent hail risk. And then as we head into the evening hours, I think that hail risk is going to die out. You'll see it right here. Watch it die out as it tracks to the east. One more time, I'll show you a breakdown here of those storms. You can kind of see An area highlighted in red. It's a small area for some of that larger hail. I do have a moderate risk highlighted there in yellow for Jackson and Atlanta. Better risk for hail in Nashville. I think that we have a pretty good chance here. However, it's going to be on the smaller side. We're talking probably ping pong ball size or smaller. And as you head farther up to the north, that hail size gets smaller. And again, it's a very narrow corridor for hail potential here. After that, I think it's going to be high wind and that flooding chance. But better chances for larger hail farther down to the south. Max forecasted hail size for Saturday. I kept it smaller than what we saw on Friday. I think we'll be closer to tennis ball to hen egg sized. I think it's going to be out there if we actually get baseball size. It'll be very, very isolated if we get baseball size hail. What about that wind risk? I told you a higher wind risk, especially as you track farther to the east in Atlanta and Charlotte. Cincinnati, Cleveland, it's possible to see that high wind up there, probably 70 miles an hour at the most. Tomorrow's tornado forecast, I told you that Saturday absolutely has a better chance for strong tornadoes. And you can see that even from the National Weather Service. They have Jackson all the way to Atlanta. And that pink risk, we're talking that extreme category here for the chance for tornadoes. And actually, an update here, we have had a high risk. So this is the first high risk of the season. If you watched our forecast yesterday, you saw moderate risk, a level 4 on a scale of 5. The National Weather Service, the Storm Prediction Center, has now upgraded this to a level 5 out of 5. That is the highest you can go. A level 5 out of 5, a high risk, but probably because of the chance for tornadoes. I told you that there's a way better tornado chance on Saturday, so anywhere from Jackson to Atlanta. And did you see, this is the same area where I was showing those discrete supercells. That is what we're watching here. Jackson to Atlanta on Saturday, a high risk here. So breaking down that risks, we talked about a lot here, right? We've got that tornado risk, we've got that wind risk. I think that'll be the biggest thing to watch out for. That hail risk, it's definitely possible on Saturday. However, it's a lot lower on Saturday than it is on Friday. And then that flooding risk also on the board here. After that, I know that was a lot of information. After that, the storms are going to be tracking out to the East Coast by Sunday morning. By Sunday evening, slowly off to the East Coast, and we are severe clear by Monday. However, are we going to see more storms next week? I don't think that it's out of the question. I think that it's possible here. And we'll talk about that in just a minute. Let's see what's next. More storms next week. Hold off just a minute on that. Just a little recap of what we talked about today. 2 areas for storms tonight. Starting after about 2 to 3 o'clock, really ramping up by about 4 o'clock this evening. We have that unstable air down to the south. We have it up to the north. St. Louis looks like one of the most promising areas for storms today, but Memphis also in that category. Storms continue through the overnight hours tonight, ramping back up by early tomorrow afternoon, if not even earlier into the late morning hours. Again, mainly for that tornado risk, but high wind and hail will also be on the board here. This will continue to the East Coast on Sunday, wrapping up by Monday. I just wanted to do a little recap there for those who may have missed it. But again, next week, could we see another chance for storms next week? I think it's definitely possible. So what we're watching for here is we're watching for these troughs. So we call these, we have ridges and we have troughs. And this is exactly what causes severe weather. You can see that area of most likely severe weather right here. That's what we're watching for. Look out to the west. Could we see another one of those coming our way by the middle of next week? It's definitely possible. What we like to say in the weather community is once we turn that switch on for storms, it is on, and it's hard to turn it back off. Let's take a look at future temperatures here. We're in the 60s and 70s for this afternoon. It's gorgeous temperature-wise, but it's windy. It's pretty uncomfortable to be outside right now, especially in Oklahoma. I don't care what the temperature is, that wind is miserable today. As we head into the weekend, we'll probably see a little bit of a cool down, seeing a cool down as we head into the weekend, but then warming back up. We kind of stay on this warmer trend here, which will continue as we head into the end of March. It looks like temperatures are likely to be average or above average into this month. And then what about that rain chance? Not bad, about average. This area down here is going to be the biggest area of concern. If you see that dry area, we need rain in this area. The fire concern out here is going to be really bad if we don't get rain soon. We've already seen blowing dust across the Oklahoma Panhandle and the Texas Panhandle and even into central Oklahoma and Texas. Now, we talked about a lot today, so if you do have any more questions, put them in the comments section and we'll get to those. I'm usually pretty good about going through the comment section and responding to people after the forecast is over. And if you need to see any of those graphics again, you can always rewatch this live. You can fast forward, rewind, pause, wherever you need to see that information again. As always, we're going to be posting more about these storms. We'll be tracking it. We have 17 meteorologists here at Hail Trace. 8 of those are mapping meteorologists that follow these storms second by second, frame by frame on the radar. So we'll be posting what we find today. Follow us on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok. We're also on Threads, LinkedIn. If there's a social media platform, we're probably on there. And if you're interested in a hail, wind, or tornado map, we'll be mapping them. We're mapping that storm that's right north of Kansas City right now. So give us a call at 855-334-4245 or email us at info@hailtrace.com. You can even head over to our website for more information at hailtrace.com. Thanks for joining us today. We'll give you more updates throughout the rest of the afternoon, so hit that follow button and we will see you. We don't usually have forecasts on Saturday, but we will have a forecast tomorrow. So if nothing else, we'll see you back here, same time, same place tomorrow.